Hello everyone. Today's talk will be on how confronting fear leads to clarity. And what that really means is that through our life, we are put into moments where we do not want to take a step forward when we are looking at the consequences of what will happen. And so that moment is profound because when fear and shock come to you, it's as if nature is speaking more through you, and so that is simply what's happening. Any form of thing that happens to you is an intensity in life attention. So what that means is something is happening, some change is happening. So do not be worried about changes, whether they are from physical to a different form of physical, or whether they're from physical to non-physical, or whether they're from physical to non-physical and then non-physical to physical at the same time. So you will kind of see that you do get, after a certain point of very compassionate cultivation of insight, an ability to confront more than what you see. So that ability leads to a sense of multidimensional acknowledgement of simultaneous realities. These realities are not parallel in the way that we're saying, oh, it's me in different dimensions like that. That is a very simple way of considering it, but no, there's intelligences present in which you will see that you are simply a bridge. And so man was that guardian of existence of Gaia, the guardian of Gaia, who walked and in a sense was aware, and through his inner harmonies and ability to communicate many realms, adjusted and healed the planet. It's very funny, but we forget that it's our communication that will bring the greatest healing, both for others, for ourselves, and for the planet. Because think about it, sound is creating energy. Sound is profound. They have found that the resonance of sound has even led to geometrical expressions. So what I mean by that is that there's an intelligence in sound which we're still discovering. And so it is in my own intuition, Mr.Within's inner knowing, that there is a technology between light and sound which will lead to the greater activation of our technologies. However, it's still in its growing state. So man is this flower which is, in a sense, exploring new petals and new dimensions of its being. And so you will find the lotus to be very significant when you are taking the middle way as an observer of all life rather than as an individuation, considering many more individuations because it can as an individual. The way you're living is not the way you have to be living. And sometimes you'll see the way you are living is not the way you think you are living. You might think that you are the worst person, you're guilty, you're a terrible person, you don't deserve this and this, but at certain moments of observing that same view, so in other words, if you could stand yourself and observe how you were going into that, let's say, tantrum or that internal, let's say, state of stress or whatever you conceived, right? You would see that suffering is not what needs to dictate your dimension. If you choose your change in suffering, in other words, if I choose, you can, of course, but if you get a more conscious view on creating destruction in your imagery, so what that means is that your subtler realms are opening to you through a more destructive act, you will see that it will all suddenly come back to the present moment because you need to cultivate understanding of construction as well. And similarly, you'll see you have. So we as human beings have lived and gone through many fluctuations in our state of being to be right now who we are now. And the reason we have gone through these many fluctuations is because we're considering a segmented sense of space and time. However, your experience of the present moment is not bound to time. The true essence of experience is timeless, it's spaceless, it's nameless. So stop trying to touch the untouchable. In a sense, know that you are untouched, because that is how you will understand the touch you are, the touch of inspiration. And so an existential allowance will, in a sense, guide you towards that collective sense of knowing that your individuality is where it must be. Because omnipresence and omniscience is simply all that is, being all that is, regardless of existence or non-existence, or sight or no sight. We continue to be alive as we, sleep and go through different states of our, in a sense, body, resonating to different moments differently. But you will really see that once fear shows itself, Do not delay in confrontation. When your comfort zone is broken and you're stepping beyond that border, like perhaps how Frodo felt when he was stepping out of the Shire, you will see that your experience will always go towards its most wondrous sense of opening. In other words, your experience is never convinced by what it's observed. The objects of observance are never convincing that the observer is an object. And it's a very important moment when you recognize that movement can still continue when you're still. Your own sense of movement, your own sense of a greater expression. One of the first things I wrote, I don't want to talk about it too much because they're not things to talk about. Whoever gravitates to them does on their own. But the title was called The Great Work. And when you think about what the great work of man is, it's really your present moment. But all that it can also be. So it is always okay to explore through a sense of existential allowance and self-understanding and knowing, self-awareness. And the fear just fades because your dimension and your experience of reality is no longer, in a sense, left to its individuation, but you will feel empty. So do not think that you're going to go experience multidimensionality without feeling emptiness. You must have a total ability to confront that emptiness, because if you don't, that emptiness will be filled up with your fears and all the senses that you feel like you're not ready. But you actually are outside of that space. So what that means is that if you go to a random house, and you might suddenly be like, whoa, this is not my home, right? But if you're in your home, you suddenly realize this is my home. So simply now you have just gone into a space of reality conception, of space and time considered continuum, that is how your reality is presented. Because agitation is a creative phenomenon. So anger is only hurtful because man is considering a sense of himself that can be hurt. So you must see that man must have the ability to even be able to live with animals. Let's say suddenly the world was over, you know, in like how many movies are, and you're just left there, right? You need to have the ability to confront any reality, any imagery within your plane of existence. Because that is how you can become aware of the greater abilities of the pilot of the consciousness, to being able to juggle many things at the same time with the certainty that none will ever fall. Because if you conceive a fall, you are in a sense not being aware to the present moment. It's as if you're collecting a bunch of realities to then drop them into another story. That's very important. The pilot of consciousness, that's conscious, that advanced communicator in life, that advanced, in a sense, human awareness, will see that it will give itself immediately allowance. So think of it this way. When you want to clean your room and there's no room, you got to first find space, right? And so let's say you want to find space, you for example, put the stuff in a different room or put the stuff on a chair or something, you know. Similarly, you need to create a sense of space and emptiness. You need to, in a sense, know that this reality is a jacket to then be able to take it off and feel your greater senses of existential skin. So in other words, the other realities that your presence is present in, and in a sense is keeping for your duality to even be present here. In other words, sometimes man thinks that, oh, I'm in this dimension and because it's my vision, so I'm creating everything, right? However, you're not realizing, because your vision is an individual one, because you're considering yourself to be individual, you are never created. In that way, you are kept by a more collective intelligence. And so you will find the beauty in how two birds, in a sense, fly away from each other with the knowing that they will come back, you know, to meet again. And so it's very beautiful, because that is simply the essence of companionship as well in this reality. That we are walking each other home through many considerations and conceptions of reality. And so we need to have an ability to very gracefully and compassionately allow ourselves to, for a second, be silent, be still, and then to observe. So, I would like to share a quote by Einstein, and the quote is about insanity. So Einstein says, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So I want to take this concept a little deeper and see that every problem that you have right now is a problem based on something that you're doing, right? So if you still have that problem, based on your actions, the problem is still kept there. The projector is still running based on you living every day, right? So you will see that if Einstein said, a man of science, that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, in a sense, it sometimes can be interpreted that insanity is being in the same state of being and expecting another state of being. So in other words, you being in a certain range of self-awareness, or in the awareness of the golf ball, as David Lynch spoke, you know, or your awareness being that of a bowling ball. It's very different, you know. So if you are constantly trying a very moving approach, you're always trying to do something about your life, and you see it's not giving results, don't go insane. See that insanity doesn't have to, you know, in a sense, it's like, why do the same thing over again? And be still. Take your body to a state and moment of peaceful silence and stillness. Be able to sit on the ground peacefully, and hopefully with the recommendations of yogic poses from our ancient past, and simply just be aware of what is here and who you are. And you will see that in you taking and doing a different approach through a different state of self-awareness and being, all your problems are gone. You become the allowance and also the instant intent that in a sense immediately brings manifestation into where it must be. So you will see that your sense of synchronicity is just teasing you, because once you really uncover it, it's your greater existential responsibility and your sense of collective intelligence always allowing your individual to walk in greater ways into knowing itself. You see, guys, we need to consider human consciousness, and we see that, for example, the time that Christ came, human psychology was based on what was there. But right now, where we are present, human psychology is totally different. And the way we're conditioned and all of the stuff that we carry and in a sense choose to, in a sense, hold. You will see that you are a human consciousness. The human beings now are totally different human beings based on the definition of the imagery around them. But because we're in such a creative and dynamic environment, because our technologies are so advanced, you see that this imagery, this duality, is giving a greater spectrum of human ability. So the human consciousness of our generation, of this time now, is a greater allowance because there's greater images that we're simply seeing. So these greater images must now, in a sense, excite our reality. In other words, boil that water. We want to boil our essence, and from our solid bodies suddenly get an understanding of our liquid essence, and as ends are even gas essence too. You will see that the gas essence is non-conception, so it is beyond your reality. So for example, the solid state of being is how you're physically present here. The liquid is you being the observer, but your gaze is still here. The gas is you being nothing, and then you suddenly popping into another solid reality. So it's a fluctuation. It's simply like the golden ratios up and downs, but in regards to how consciousness chooses to keep itself linear. And so the state of being of the prophet is very important, because every prophet was the last prophet to the human beings they spoke. Because if you're insensitive to multidimensionality, you will worship idols thinking of other dimensions, but in a sense looking at another dimension. So it'd be like you looking at a different house and being like, yeah, I know my home is not this house, but you're not really looking at your home. And so you need to have that sense of self-exploration, which shows you who you really are. Your steps could be heavy, your steps could be light. And so your palette is very colorful when you choose and have the inspiration and intention to color. So in other words, don't try to very rationally and very mechanically, like with the slowness of, for example, how long your car takes to get fixed, you know. work and developing yourself. Want instantaneous technologies. Want technologies that are fast. Bill Gates has this quote where I think he says, actually, the quote simply suggests that he finds an easy person to do a hard job to then realize an easier way of doing it, right? So similarly, I want to say you need to have an instantaneous experience of your moment. So in other words, there is no time or image or shape to give it a sense of continuum, and just a complete absorption into your moment of being and experience, which then from that, you begin to see that from the simplicity of that state of being, you can handle your more complex realities better. So then you will be much more able in your next co-creations to work with your multidimensional projections and even being engaging them. Because man is at a point where I've noticed you can concentrate on thought to a point that it does not manifest as words, as just other people suddenly randomly come and talking to you about them. It does not manifest just as synchronicity. It manifests as your movement of reality. So you suddenly see that, oh, the physical eyes you're here are not meant to see more than physicality. That's why they're made for this design. They're not. Thank God, science is saying your physical eyes are not. You don't have other eyes, because for this dimension you should not have any other eyes. You only have your physical eyes. But in acknowledging your physicality as self-awareness, as a moment of existence, then your consideration of your space-time continuum shifts, because you get the instantaneous formless knowing of all the other probabilities of that continuum. So the abstraction of man shows that his reality cannot be limited, because it's always in the presence of the unknown, limitless. And with that, fear has dissolved. Fear is just simply the images of a reality. The moment you realize you're the dynamic state of awareness that is keeping all snapshots of your reality in which you see fear as, it will dissolve, because you realize you are also an out. Many people think that you just think that you're just, your sense of free will, you only think it's based on the freedom you've had before, the freedom you're aware of. No. Your sense of a free being is so beyond, so vast in dimension, that me talking about it can never capture its multidimensionality. And language cannot, because language is limited to its own realms as well. It's to its own form. And so the formless intelligence of presence is one that requires your direct experience and engagement and involvement, and your responsibility to be okay with getting to know yourself through any method. We're all climbing this mountain. And so, regardless of who you look at, who's climbing better or who's not climbing better, you continue your walk and always gracefully expand your intelligence. So communicate, share the knowledge you have. Don't keep knowledge with you, because the moment you keep it, you also have an intention of not letting it be alive, so the idea dies. The minute you get a great idea, talk about it, share it, and then you will feel higher states of authenticity. So when your value for language goes beyond language, so because you're acknowledging yourself more than an idea, but as a vast moment of experience and of existence, you no longer keep words, you're no longer bothered by copyrights in a sense, because there is a greater vision, which all vision is present in. And so with the playfulness to, in a sense, learn and bask in your experience, you can become a very advanced communicator and a very clear being. Because your reality is the clarity of your inspiration, which is found within the moment. Mr.Within is never sad or angry, because there's no expression, but when he smiles, that smile is a smile of all existence looking at you, saying, well done. You have recognized the creator you are as creation, and now realize it the vice versa. So man is in this dynamic where he feels he's a creation of God, and then there's the experience of the creator, right? And then there have been people like Meister Eckhart who have said, the same eyes that God sees me are the same eyes that I see God, right? So similarly, we see creation has become attentive to creator, and so is looking outside and realizing externally he can't find the creator because everything is temporal, but when he looks within, he sees that that's where the experience of the creator is, and that experience is in the present moment. So you immediately become a beacon of clarity, because you are that foundation of simple, mere awareness to existence before it has to exist in a certain way or in a certain dynamic of movement. You are that omniscience and omnipresence of the silence and stillness that observed all movement and noise. Confronting fear leads you to clarity. and will introduce you to greater selves which are walking in realms of greater ability. You will see that by stepping into the Pure Land, you are the Pure Land. And so one man simply connected nature's glance to the individuality that trusted the moment it had. And the moment it had to give. Because compassion in its deepest aspects is one of the most advanced technologies of existential confrontation. So what that means is that in the chaos which many people feel they are to confront after their ordered and structured and organized lives, when the moment of death comes, your observance of chaos will be seen and based on how well you have observed all the structures, all ideologies, and all forms in this ordered reality. And so you thought you had to just confront fear. No, you had to confront all that could define fear even. Your moment of existence, and in doing so, you would see that you are your greatest revelation. The treasure revealer is always discovering himself. And so self-discovery is the nature of your being, which is transcendence and evolution for the physical ape who tried to see a banana not just in its hand, but in a, let's say, computer screen and an iPhone and more complex gadgets. Because that ape is a huge significance. It is the keeper of your physical reality. And so you begin to not just love animals or everything, you begin to love all that is alive within your moment of life. And perhaps many of us shall, begin hanging out in the same rooms as the Dalai Lama, because we're so comfortable that we don't care how a person is, the culture is or the stress is. We simply see what kind of existential communication they are. And you are a graceful one, because the minute you see the infinity of the compassion within just your moment of existence, once you have an ability to be a good man, you have always been a good man, so do not think that you're a bad man. But you also have the ability to just keep yourself in a very solid reference by not trying to acknowledge the greater flows of life, which is really how you are experiencing yourself in deeper ways, in different intensities and different sensitivities of form and formlessness. And I would like to share another Albert Einstein quote. And it's a very good one, which really shows who he really was and where his genius came from. Any man who can drive safely while kissing a pretty girl is simply not giving the kiss the attention it deserves. And what that means is that you will see and experience the value of his quote in how you are introduced by your trust in life into your more multidimensional sense of intelligence, your collective consciousness. And you will see how your attention in a multidimensional sense is to different sensitivities. So similar to how you're driving safely, you're not completely dissolved into kissing the face of the beloved, you see that playfulness, and you see that it is a responsibility of all your formed conceptions to, in a sense, integrate, to then be still and silent to observe their greatness in all the ways they can move. So infinity is an experiential understanding, and it's an aspect of you, because you will see many people who have what they call spiritual experiences, or just very deep, profound experiences, or mystical experiences, are in a sense opening up to how they are being conscious of life. And so that consciousness is shifting because their association with ideology, with form and identity is changing. It is shifting. And in that shift, you tap into a collective knowing, which you see that your self-remembrance and your self-exploration led to the same place. The knowing of all that you can know. Because just like how you open your eyes in the morning and your reality is there, the eyes of what grace is open, which your reality is. And I am saying that grace is your grace. It is you. Your individuality, once it has the responsibility of all other people, or all forms of its separation and duality, in that immediate observance is a confrontation of and in a sense a movement into a knowing of all that is. So knowing does not need to have shape, but it needs to have, you need to be mindful and aware of still your reality. And so you need to trust life. Because it is only then that life will trust you to then provide you with the inspiration that will throw you beyond the clouds. Much blessings and namaste.